Not that long ago, I found a game in a charity shop worth buying. It was Rock Band 4 on the Xbox One for just £1. Now unfortunately it wasn't on the PS4 because it does have a little bit more value on that platform. However, I'm not going to grumble. I could have taken it straight to CEX and got a £5 credit, making what, a £4 trade profit if you will, but I decided to try my luck and I threw it on Vinted and I'm happy to say that it's sold. I think it sold for about £7. I will of course throw the value up on screen for you. Now I have already taken off how much I paid for this off the cash balance, but I will now add the profit from this onto the cash balance. And of course we're not paying any fees here because it was through Vinted. That's not the only sale in this video. I have a bit of a whopper actually that came out of nowhere and I will share that with you later on in the video. Now though, first of many trips to CEX. This was a fleeting visit and I found this. This is the Gears of War 3 Steelbook on the Xbox 360. I'm not a massive Steelbook guy, however, I had to pick that up. I mean, £1.50 for that. You don't see Steelbooks on the 360 that often in CEX. I carried on looking and I found something else. Now, the other week I made a mistake. I didn't buy a game I should have. I was in the Swindon store and I bought a lot of promotional copies. And if you didn't know, I collect them. And of course I do collect like standard versions of the Xbox 360 games as well. But if I ever see a promo game and I have enough credit for it, I'm absolutely going to buy it. One game I've been looking for quite a while is actually Wolfenstein. I really like that game on the Xbox 360. I don't think it was the first Wolfenstein game I ever played, but it was the one that I have the most fond memories of. So when I missed it in Swindon, I was a little bit annoyed, but I noticed that they had one in my local. So I'm looking around and I spot it on the second from bottom shelf, and it's the only one they have in stock, and it was £8. It came with a manual and it was in really good condition, like the insert, the manual, everything about it screamed, you have to buy me, this is great, Nick. Pick me up. So that's exactly what I did. I got Gears of War 3 for £1.50. Now I do already own this, so I'm not entirely sure what to do. I don't know how much this actually sells for. Like I mentioned, I'm not that bothered about Steelbooks. I guess it's kind of nice to have it. You don't see this that often, if I'm honest. And of course I bought Wolfenstein. However, there was an issue. I didn't check it when I bought it. I just trust my CEX to give me good condition games. However, there is a common problem with Xbox 360 discs, and that is the spindle. If you know, you know, but if you don't know, they do have cracks in them every now and again, and they can split. I've had many a game over the years that I've had to try and glue or sellotape to stop the rot, if you will, before it gets onto the data and just completely ruins the game altogether. The search goes on for Wolfenstein on the 360, but I do get to add the first game to the collection of the video, and that is the Steelbook for Gears 3. I don't have Gears 2. And of course there are others amongst that, but the original trilogy, if you will, are the ones that I would consider to be the must-haves on the console because they are the best by far. But like I mentioned, I've already got this. It's not worth selling the other one, so I guess I'm just going to have 2 copies of Gears 3 in the collection. I often go to Vinted to pick up some video games because they're cheap. People undervalue them. It is the car boot sale of the internet. And what I normally do, and what I'm actually going to do in this video, not with this pickup specifically though, is I normally buy PS4 games, trade them in and get credit, more credit than I've spent cash on. But in this instance I bought 3 copies of a game that I don't really know why I did it, but I decided to do it because A, I didn't have it in the collection already, and B, they were worth more than I paid. So this is Damnation. Now I don't have this. It's an alright looking game. I've played it a little bit here or there over the years and it's in reasonably good condition. There were 3 games in this lot. I paid very little for these and I will show you on screen how much I paid in a second. The other copy is, well, Damnation, and I think you may know where this is going. So again, it comes with a manual. The condition on this one isn't as good as the first, but it is still in serviceable condition, tradable condition. And then of course that brings me on to the third game, which, if you haven't guessed already, is, yeah, Damnation. I bought 3 copies of the same game, all with manuals, all in tradable, serviceable condition. Why the hell am I such an idiot? Why have I done this? Why do I need 3 copies of the same game? This game is going to trade in for £40 each. No, I've got no idea why I decided to do it. Someone listed 3 copies of Damnation, and I thought, well, that's not a bad price, but I'm going to shoot an offer, and they accepted a lower offer. For some reason, it was free postage as well, so Yeah, I got 3 copies of Damnation for next to nothing. And of course, I don't own this. Now, it's £5 to buy in CEX, so I get to keep one of them. And I have sort of taken the best manual and the best disc, and I'm going to put that into the collection. So that's the one on the top, that's that one there. Now, I have 2 copies left. What do I do with them? Well, I could trade them into CEX. They trade at the moment anyway for £3 each. The other day there were only 2 copies in the entire company, and then over the weekend someone bought both of them, so they didn't have any stock left. Now that I look, there are 6 stores that have 1 copy, so this isn't super common despite the fact that it is a pretty cheap game. And I've seen an awful lot of talk recently about Xbox 360 game prices going through the roof, and I started scanning some of mine, and oh my days, I'm quite excited to make that video because I'm going to go through all of my games and show you which ones have just gone through the... Some of them, honestly, some of them are worth so much money compared to what I paid, and I didn't buy them as an investment. They've just gone like above and beyond anyone's expectation. But I actually expect this to go up in price soon, so even though I think I'm going to trade both of them in and just get the voucher for them, I am hoping that it's going to creep up to maybe £8 or like a £5 trade, so £8 to buy or something. I'm reluctant to trade them in just yet. If I sold them on eBay, for example, I probably could get around £6 or £7 each, and of course I've paid far less than that. So I will take off the value that I paid for these off the cash balance in the series at the moment, but one of them will go into the collection, and then we have 2 to play with. I used to go into CEX a lot and look for Steelbooks. I actually went into CEX today and I didn't really find many of them, but I did find a Final Fantasy 15 or something on the PS4. It was a Steelbook. I think they were selling it for 18 quid. Sells for about the same on eBay. Left it there. But every now and again I will pick a Steelbook up that I think is good value. For example, Gears 3, but that will remain in the collection. But sometimes I'll go in and on the PS4 they'll have some Steelbooks there that are £4 or £5 because they just charge the standard copy of the game, and then I can take them and put them on eBay and flip them for double or triple the amount that they're actually going for in CEX, because these are very collectible. A while ago I found Tomb Raider. Now it doesn't have the game with it, doesn't have the manual, but it is in very good condition. I don't know if it ever came with a slipcover or not. I honestly can't remember where I got this. I don't know whether I bought it on Vinted, whether someone sent it to me, whether I picked it up in a boot sale. I genuinely cannot remember where I got this from. It was documented in the series, absolutely, but I can't find it and I don't remember it. So if you remember or you can find it, please let me know, because it drove me a little bit mad trying to find out where I got this from. But I do know that it cost me next to nothing. Now, of course, everything in my collection at this point doesn't owe me anything. It's all free. I buy and sell and flip and whatever. So all the collection that you see behind me, it's all been paid for. So this Steelbook doesn't owe me anything, even though it did probably cost me a couple of quid. I decided to have a cheeky little look to see how much it was worth, because sometimes Steelbooks go up in price, and this has indeed gone through the roof. It was never really worth much of anything. I checked it, I wouldn't say not that long ago, but a good few months ago I checked it and it wasn't worth anything. And I have a Call of Duty Black Ops 4 Steelbook as well. That does come with a game. It's only really worth a tenner. I have listed it because I genuinely don't care about it, and I have that game on the Xbox One anyway. So I checked Tomb Raider's price, and the cheapest one on eBay was 50 quid. So I undercut massively, and bang, it sold within a day. And it sold for £35 plus postage, and it owes me absolutely sod all at this point. So £35 minus eBay fees, because it did go on eBay. But that is really decent, and I'm a big fan of buying Steelbooks for that reason, not for collecting them. I'm not bothered about collecting them. If I have them in my collection, they look cool, fine, whatever. But if they're ever worth a load more than I bought them for, I am happy to sell them on, because the normal copy of the game for me is enough. If I can get a special edition of it, where it's like a big box and a figure and stuff, yeah, that's cool. I like them, they're decent, but when it comes to tins, essentially, it just doesn't really do it for me. Now, speaking of big special editions, I don't own a special edition in my entire collection. I used to own the Killzone helmet that I sold a long time ago because it was big and bulky, and I'm really not a Killzone fan, but I saw something in Cardiff not that long ago. It was in a random shop down a random arcade. I didn't even know the shop existed. I can't remember the name of this shop. It was pretty cool. They had a whole host of collectibles. They had like very few video games dotted around the place, but if you're into your collectibles, your figures, your pop figures, or just random things in general, this is actually a really good place to go. It's not a very big store, independently run, and I got very few footage here. It was a Saturday, it was very busy, there was people everywhere. I actually met a subscriber in there, so if you're watching, shout out to you. But they had a load of stuff in there, and if I was into collecting things like this, I would have been in absolute paradise. But they had something that was in a glass cabinet. Above Chucky, the really weird looking Chucky, they had Driver San Francisco Special Edition. Didn't quite see it properly there, so I'll pan up again for you to have another look. So next to Halloween, above whatever it's, was it Friday the 13th figure, they have a Driver San Francisco Special Edition on the Xbox 360. This is something that you don't see that often, because in CEX anyway, they don't really display things like this very well. At least they don't in my CEX. They'll either be on the back counter that you only see it when you go to the till, or they don't display it at all. Now and again they'll put it in the glass, but more often than not they won't. You have to go on the website to see if they have it in stock. So I went on the CEX website to see how much it was and who had it in stock. Is it something that's that common? Is it readily available? Is this store overcharging for it? Are they undercharging for it? And I was pleasantly surprised by how much the store was charging versus the CEX price and availability. So this in CEX is 58 quid and it trades in for 38. They give you 27 cash. However, there is no stock of it whatsoever. The cheapest one I could find on eBay was about 80. That was on Saturday a couple of weeks ago, so now it might be different, and I'll throw some pictures and prices up for you on screen. This one was priced at £42. So I said, well, is your price on this firm? Is £42 your absolute lowest? And he said, well, there's a bit of wiggle room here. And I was like, well, I'll have a look at the condition first and we'll go from there. So I bought it. Now I didn't pay 42, and that's what the price tag is on the window there. Now it does have a little bit of damage. In fact, it did have a lot of bit of damage because the lid was loose, and in fact it was completely apart from sort of this. It was, the glue had gone, it was just dead, so I had to re-glue that back, so now it's as it was, but there is a small rip in the cardboard there, which is a little bit unfortunate. The rest of it is not that bad. It is dirty, it needs a good wipe down. I haven't quite done that yet, but this is my very first Xbox 360 special edition of this collection. I used to buy them back in the day. I had the gun for Saints Row, I had the Master Chief helmet, I bought various other special editions when they came out because I was stupid and just didn't care about money at the time. I'd get paid and I just, get it all back out again and buy video games for days. But this was really well priced. At 42 it's decent anyway, right? But I managed to get him down to 32. And the reason I've got him down to 32 is because this is incomplete. However, it is completable, if that is a word. I'll give you close-ups of this, of course, but essentially it comes with everything, the map and the comic and of course the car, which by the way is very heavy. It's very well built, and I would say a big fan of Driver San Francisco. I wouldn't say it's my favorite game of all time or anything, but I do really like the game. It has some very interesting game mechanics, and that's kind of what makes me really like it. And of course I do like the originals on the PS1 and such, but this unfortunately doesn't include the game. Now you might think that is a big drawback, but I mean it's not that bad because I've read it and it is literally just a standard copy of the game. There's no special case or cover to it. It's just a bog standard copy. So all I need to do to complete this special edition is to go and buy the game, which at the moment is £12. They do actually have one in my local CEX, but the inlay is ripped, which is really frustrating, and I just don't see it many other places because I'm looking for it. If I wasn't looking for it, it would be everywhere, right? But I've paid £32 for a special edition that, if I buy the game, is worth around 60 to 80. Probably on the lower end of that, maybe the 60 side because of the rip and slight sort of, not discolouring, but it's got a bit of dirt on it. I'm going to be able to get it off, I know I am. But I was really happy with that. I really want to get things like this. I'm not bothered about tins like I've mentioned, but special editions of games I really like, I am more than happy to add to the collection. But we're going to deduct £32 from the cash in this series. So essentially the Tomb Raider Steelbook has paid for a Driver San Francisco special edition. And of course, if I cleaned this up and sold it, I could probably get 50, 60 for it if I really wanted to, but I'm going to keep it. And of course, while I was in Cardiff, I may as well have gone into the CEX, right? So here we are. Now, I did meet actually another subscriber on this day as well, and I took my first ever picture with a subscriber. I don't have the picture to show you, but yeah, shout out to you too. It always catches me by surprise when someone says, "Oh, you're TVM," and I'm like, "Am I? Oh yeah, I am." Like, it throws me off massively, and you have no idea how nervous I get when someone says, "Oh, I love your videos," 'cause I genuinely don't know what to say. I like it. It drives me crazy to think that people are sat there watching me do this. Like, I don't understand it. I am more than grateful. You will never know how grateful I am to have this channel and for people to watch and for people who leave comments and hit the like button and subscribe and keep coming back and watching more of it. I don't get it, but I am more than grateful. You will never know. So thank you to you for watching. Thank you if you say hello to me. If it's a bit awkward and you think, "Oh, that guy was a bit rude," it's just because I don't know what to say, and I'm just struck by someone who actually wants to speak to me. Like, it's just crazy to me. So thank you to everyone watching, and if you do come up to me and say hello, it really does mean a lot to me. So 360, I looked through the PS4, PS5 and the Xbox One games, and we'll talk more about that in another video. I'm going to not shift focus, but I've got an idea basically, and I want to talk about it. But for now, of course, I am just looking through the 360 games. So some people have said you don't flick through. Now, I do flick through every now and again, but you're absolutely right. I don't flick through enough. And there are an awful lot of games that have promo copies that won't just be forward-facing. And I know that there was a Dance Central down bottom left there. We've been through this before. I'm not going to collect games I don't ever really plan on playing, so Dance Central can stay there. And, of course, bundle copies don't count, so that Gears in the middle there, it doesn't count. I did really want this, but it's classics, and I just don't know if I could bring myself to do it. I don't know, actually, though, if that San Andreas is available non-classics, if you will. But yeah, flicking through games, I need to do it more, and I've started doing it a lot more, to be fair, because there are going to be copies of games that I can pick up, a promo, for example, that are going to be behind others. So you can see all the Mass Effects there. Every single one of them has a promo copy, so I'm going to need to start flicking through them in order to find them. That cut there was where the subscriber actually came up to me. So I'm looking through the Mass Effects, I'm looking through the Need for Speeds. All of these games I know have promo copies, so I need to find them. There's bound to be one somewhere, and as I'm flicking through Mass Effects, yes, that's right, I find one. So thank you to everyone who comments. You need to be flicking through these games, because I would not have found it had I not been flicking through them, and it's because of your comments that kind of made me think, well, yeah, you're right, I should be flicking through it, because half the time I just can't be bothered to do it. I'm always of the opinion that I'm never going to find one, and if there was a promo copy, for some reason it would be on display, even though people generally tend to ignore these. £1.50 on what is actually my first Mass Effect game. I was very tempted to buy the whole collection. There's only 3 of them, obviously. I say only 3, but there are 3 of them. And I was tempted to just buy all 3 because they're not expensive. I think Mass Effect 1 is like £1.50. This is £1.50. Mass Effect 3 is £1 again, or £1.50, something of that nature. So they're not expensive. I can get all of them for under £5. Now, unfortunately, this one doesn't come with a manual. I'm not too bothered about collecting games with manuals for when they're that cheap. You know, like if this was a £30 game and it didn't come with a manual, probably wouldn't have bought it. This is something I know I can go and get a manual for, and it's going to cost me £1 or less. They did have a few games that I was tempted by, or would rather was sort of half considering picking up, but I was just sort of on a passing visit, if you will. I hadn't long been in there, if I'm honest, like maybe 2 or 3 days prior. So this was probably in there when I was in there the first time. I showed you footage of it not that long ago. I think I picked up a promo copy game then as well, actually. I think it was Castlevania 2. Yeah, this was a few days after the Castlevania pickup, but yeah, flicking through. Spider-Man. Superman is a game I actually see going up very soon. I did need this, actually, Project 8, but it's cheap enough at the moment that I'm not really willing to spend credit on it. I don't need to spend the credit on it, so I decided to leave it. And there was quite a few games, actually, over the last couple of days, and today specifically, I've seen games that I really wanted to pick up, but they were like £1.50, £2, £3, £4, and I've got credit, right? The amount of credit I have is on screen for you. It's enough to be able to buy not as many of these games as I want, but a lot of these games. A lot of these £1, £2, £3 games. But I like going into CEX on a £10, £15 budget and seeing what I can pick up. And as I'm collecting for the 360, it's a really nice and easy and fun way for me to go in blind, not look online to see what they have, go in blind and go through these games and pick these games up and walk out with 5 or 6 copies of 360 games that I don't own for the collection that's cost me less than £15. If I buy them all with credit, it kind of stops me doing that, or at least it slows me down, so I can't go into CEX and spend 15 quid easily on games that I actually want, because I've bought them all with credit. So I'm going to add Mass Effect 2 to the collection, so that's 360 games and a special edition that we're putting in today. But we're not done yet. When I buy things on Vinted, I normally like to film me opening it. For whatever reason, I couldn't really do it here. It was awkward. I had to sort of mark it as received as and when, and I wanted to check them over. So I bought 3 PlayStation 4 games, and they were pretty cheap. It cost me like 8 quid something all in all. The games were Need for Speed Payback, PS4. Obviously, all 3 of these are PS4. This traded in at the time for 10 quid, and it came with a little leaflet, and the disc was in good condition, and that was game number 1. Game number 2 was Sonic Mania Plus. Now, I'm not a massive fan of this game. I don't know why. I don't like it. It's sort of Sonic 2 mixed up, and it's just not. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't know why. I tried it. It comes with a manual and a disc. It's in good condition. I do actually have the slipcover behind me. Didn't come with a slipcover. I have that from a different edition that I used to own. So I have this, which is the slipcover. It comes with the art book as well. This is just a blank PS4 case that I put it in there to keep the shape. But I had this a long time ago. Decided to trade the game in, but I kept the slipcover and the manual, or the art book if you will, because I really like them, and because at some point I will pick it up and I will keep it, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of it. I like to try it again and see if I can get on with it. Today was not that occasion, because I want the credit, and it traded in for 12 at the time. Now, there was another game here, and that is Spider-Man. Now, this was the sort of lesser of the 3 games, if you will. Believe it or not, this traded in for less money. I think it traded in for 6 or 8, one or the other. So I've just checked. Trades in for 8. Not bad, considering I paid just over 8 for the entire thing. So, I was going to get around, what, 30 quid in credit for these? 12, 10 is 22, 8, 30, yeah, £30 in credit for all 3 of them, for just over an £8 spend is banging. Unfortunately, when I opened this bad boy, it didn't have the game in it. Recently, and when I say recently, I literally mean like 2 days prior to these arriving, Vinted updated their terms of service with regards to returns for bundles. I haven't read it, and I don't claim to know the ins and outs of it. However, you used to have to return the entire bundle if you had a problem with just one item. Well, 2 days prior, Vinted introduced individual returns. I don't know how it worked, but I somehow got a refund, and I will show on screen for you. I somehow got a refund of just under £8 just because this one game had a problem with it. I paid just over £8 for 3 of them. How did I get just under 8 for this? I honestly couldn't tell you. I asked the seller how much money they sort of got for the whole thing, and they said that Vinted only really took about £4 off them. So Vinted essentially soaked up the price of the postage and gave it back to me, and didn't take it off the seller. I have no idea how it works. I don't understand it, but I'm not going to question it. It does mean that I've paid around 50 pence for Sonic Mania Plus and Need for Speed Payback. And now I have an empty case for Spider-Man, which I guess I'm just going to keep until I can get the loose disc for it. That's going to do it for the end of part 1. I am going to split this up because I do have like another 15 minutes worth recorded and edited, but I want to take another trip to CEX because these now trade in for just that little bit more. I can get £10 for these as opposed to the 6 that I thought I was going to. That will give me £73 in credit to be able to spend on whatever I want in CEX, as I do of course. That credit figure though is about to go through the roof because I have an idea. I want to do something. I'm not going to share it with you just yet because other things are moving into place and I need to get something before I can do something else. It will all be explained, hopefully at least, at the end of the next episode. For right now though, collector's edition, promo copies, damnation, and of course an empty case for Spider-Man, which I will get the disc for at some point. Keep your eyes peeled for part 2, that won't be far away. And in the meantime, if you want to check out a video where I talk about these games going up in price, you can click here. And until the next time, goodbye.